Hello everyone. How do you do? And welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday, the 19th of September 2022. It's Gary here again, and I don't know about you, but I'm getting kind of dizzy with the topsy-turvy way that our club and our team is kind of all over the place in terms of performances and results these days. I was talking to my family at the game on Saturday there, and thinking back to the last time that we could recall when we lost 3 games on the bounce, and I do recall it was way back in the day, and I think we get put out of Europe, we get put out of the League Cup at Ibrox. I believe that was by Falkirk, and then we got beat by the mob from the east end of the city, all within a week or so. I believe during Sir Walter's first stint as manager, and I remember at the time thinking it was a big deal. But I didn't get quite as perplexed about it as I have been this past wee while with the current squad. And I think that we all really agreed that it wasn't so much the results in the 3 very difficult games that we had, but it was the manner of the performances, especially the first two 4-0 games. So early in the season that the team looks, actually they look very lethargic and tired, and that's a hell of a worry for me. And I was chatting with some of the other club members here in Calgary after the game, and we were talking, we started to talk about some of the injured folks, and admittedly I'd completely forgotten about Kamar Roof. Can you believe that? Like, completely forgot about the guy. But we have Philippe Hollander, we've John Suter, Kamar Roof, Tom Lawrence, Yanis Hadji, all still to come back, and I have no idea what the timelines are for all of them. But these guys are game changers for us when they're fit and on form. So maybe things aren't quite as bleak as I was starting to feel they were in terms of our squad size and depth. And I don't know. I mean, that's 5 international players right there, and that's not to be sniffed at for any squad. It doesn't take away from my ongoing surprise that we didn't further invest in the squad when we qualified for the Champions League. But when you have 5 international starters in the treatment room, perhaps then, with a pending return for some of them in the not too distant future, then I could see why the club might decide to hedge their bets and go with or stick with what we already have, especially if the transfer marketplace wasn't serving up any players who were better than they are when fit. So then I looked at the first team squad yesterday when I was prepping for today's pod, and I counted 32 players registered in there in the men's first team squad. 32. Now you can probably take around 6-ish or so of those out as development prospects, but that's still 25, 26 players. That's a really healthy size of a squad right there, in my opinion. Now the club recruitment strategy is, and this is all pure speculation on my part, of course, but as I reflect a little bit more objectively and not with or from the heart or with my blue tinted glasses on, I'm getting a bit more and more confident that we actually have what we need when everyone is fit, both domestically and for Europe. And of course, waking up yesterday to the mighty St Mirren result against our closest rivals, and all of a sudden, after 7 games, the league table is looking a lot more healthy than it might have after our pretty much inconsistent, somewhat struggly start to the league campaign. So I don't know about you, but as I say all of this stuff out loud, I'm starting to feel a bit better and better, and I'm really looking forward to a well-deserved international break where we can maybe hopefully get 1 or 2 of these players back, and Gio and his staff can work more closely with the other players and to continue their ongoing development under him. And I read an article that was written for the Rangers Review last week by a fellow by the name of Kieran Maguire, who is, I don't know the guy, but some form of business expert. I hadn't heard about him until the article was published, to be honest. And it does a really good job of shedding light on our finances in terms of regular income, irregular income, the ongoing cost considerations that we have to operate under, and it also breaks down the actual monies that Rangers received or will expect to receive for participation in the Champions League. And it's not the hundreds and thousands of millions of pounds that's been bandied around, unfortunately. There are payments for qualifying, there are payments related to the specific club coefficient over the past 10-year period, which is based on ranking. And with Rangers ranked 31st, we get 2 points and each point is worth just over £1 million. I believe it's 1.1 million, something like that. And then there's monies that are referred to as market pool, which is an estimate on what that could potentially be, as we won't know till the end of the season what the market pool will be. And that is split 55% and 45% in favour of the domestic champions, so that mob from the East End, I believe. But that market pool could also earn net as around £2 million-ish, and then you'll see our guaranteed monies before ticket sales, before sponsorship and any other associated commercial activity. Our guaranteed monies are in or around the £17 to £18 million mark. So, back to the coefficient payment, when you consider that Rangers are 31st on the list of the 32 teams with only 4 years of points accumulation in the past 10, that's a brilliant achievement. It's just incredible. And my understanding is that 32nd spot gets 1 point, 31st gets 2 points, 30th gets 3 points, and so on. Real Madrid are in top spot and they get 32 points, and that nets them about €36 million for the coefficient payment alone. So just demonstrating further that the gulf, even at this level, at the elite level, between the lower and the higher ranked teams. So in his conclusion on the article, Maguire says, Rangers' recent success in terms of UEFA competition and player trading has allowed the club to move to being a sustainable business, as opposed to one that was reliant on owner benevolence to provide both working and growth capital. It is in a much better position than a few years ago, but the devil in the details suggests that being able to spend huge sums on player recruitment is neither achievable or, if you look at the spend strategies of clubs such as Barcelona and Everton, desirable. So, a key part of that conclusion, as you can see, is that the club are working through a transition from an investor-funded club to a self-sustaining and operating club. The wage bill has gone up a bit this year to give us a better chance of getting to the Champions League, of course, which we did. And when, of course, we've had some high-profile contract renewals and extension. And also what doesn't quite get factored in a lot in terms of the deals that we did make, with the 7 signings that we made, is agents' fees, and these are a major factor in getting deals done sometimes as well. So all of that to say that things for me aren't quite as cut and dried as I originally thought they were. I thought there was a 40-50 million pound treasure chest there, and then you've got the player sales that we've already made, and we should be able to be in a position to go out and start to look at more higher tier players. But the more I delve into the numbers, the more I'm convinced that the prudency and diligence of the financial folks at the club, they are doing their best to just ensure that we are basically where we need to be right now, I think, financially. And the main part here is, of course, continued success on the pitch, and that starts with re-establishing our domestic dominance. And as I mentioned before, that doesn't seem like quite the impossible task now, looking at the league table today. And I know that mob are a mile ahead on goal difference, but if you remove the freak 9-0 result against Dundee United a few weeks back, and then the 8-goal swing that we endured on the recent Old Firm disaster, then the gap isn't the 14 goals that it is today. It's either in our favour or at least more on par. So I say all of this at the beginning of this week's show in terms of using the international break as a moment or two of reflection as to where things stand and sit for our team on and off the pitch, and trying to sprinkle my own sense of reality on things using facts and figures, some supposition, quite honestly, and some delving a wee bit deeper into the squad numbers and the makeup and the like. So take from it what you will, of course, but I did enjoy researching this particular part and hope you might have gotten something from it too. Anyway, on to the games segment for this week, and it was one that included another heavy-ish defeat and a bit of a domestic struggle fest. Firstly, we endured a 3-0 home defeat to Napoli in the UEFA Champions League, and that, quite honestly, with a wee bit more luck and composure in front of goal, it could have been a very different and more positive result for us. Absolutely, it could have been. We played superbly well for the first 55 minutes, and the real turning point in the game was James Sands' second yellow on 55 minutes. I didn't actually realise his bookings were so close together until after the game. I think I was actually talking to one of the guys I play football with on on Thursday night there, and he says, "Oh yeah, two bookings in a minute, or two bookings in 2 minutes." And I was like, no, I don't think so. And I thought one was at the end of the first half and one was at the beginning of the second, but nope, I was completely wrong, and he was completely right. And at this level, at the level we're playing at now, you can genuinely mistime a tackle, and it looks worse than it was, and than when it was intended to be. And I think that definitely Sands was a victim to that, certainly for the first booking. And of course, these guys are just so quick. And the second one was just so unlucky for it to be both him and John Lundstrom as the two players tracking back as a guy breaks through, as both were on a yellow at that point. And I don't know, in hindsight, I wonder if it would have been better either not to have made any tackle at all and take our chances of McGregor making a brilliant save, which we know he can, or worst case, allowing him in on goal, keeping 11 men on the pitch, and then taking our chances with 11 versus 11. I mean, it's easy for me to say that now, I know, but strategically it might have helped, because when we went down to 10 men, even with the score still being 0-0 at that particular moment, I think we all knew that we were in a bit of trouble, as Napoli were just so slick and quick all over the field for the majority of the game. And it was great to see Alan McGregor back in goals. For the regular listeners, you'll know how much of a downer I've been on John McLaughlin since his nightmare horror show at Sharkhead a few weeks back there. And to have McGregor back in goals, I mean, McGregor's just simply the best keeper that we have at the club, and boy did he deliver on the night with two amazing penalty saves. And by the way, he almost got the third one as well. I mean, that was a superbly hit one, but just a wee tiny bit more conviction in the dive, and he might have got a hand to that one. The real downer for me was the fact that we had started the second half superbly well and were very much in the ascendancy, and I thought the team most likely to score when the red card came. McGregor's heroics gave us all a wee bit of hope that maybe, just maybe, something special was going to happen, but then another penalty in the 68th minute for an unlucky handball started the slide for us. But yeah, losing another 2 goals in the 85th and 91st minutes was a wee bit of salt in the wounds for us that we didn't really need, and I don't think we actually deserved it at all either. Positives from the game: the tifo put on by the Union Bears and the rendition of God Save the King at the beginning was absolutely stunning. Jeez, oh my, I mean, goosebumps all the way on that one for me. Just absolutely fantastic job that everyone did on that one. On the actual game, as I mentioned before, with a wee bit more composure and luck in front of goal, this really could have kick-started our European campaign. Alfredo Morelos had a great chance in the first minute. I think he just jumped too early. Scott Arfield had a brilliant shot, brilliantly saved by the Italian number 1 goalie, and it felt like the whole team were just back to their best, which is that kind of roller coaster thing I'm talking about at the top of the pod here as well. Napoli will have known they were in a game, really a genuine competitive game, and hopefully that's a positive for us to kick on from and take it and see where we take the next 4 games. And it's funny to say it, but after a third consecutive defeat, including a third consecutive shutout for our strikers or our team, I felt pretty good about things afterwards, and was really proud of how the team performed throughout the game. That's more like it, I think, is probably the best way to say it. Negatives, well, the score, of course, and the fact that we have 0 points from 2 games and a goal difference of -7. It's pretty grim reading for now, but we are in the early stages in the league, and you just don't know how things might pan out for us in the double-header against Liverpool next month. And the red card for Sands was a bit of a downer too, because he has been a star performer for us this year and one of the real shining lights, and I felt a bit sorry for him, for him both getting the red card and going to be suspended for the next game, and for the absolute and almost immediate material impact that it had on the game as well. Referee watch. I thought that Spain's Antonio Lajos, I think that's how you pronounce it, was a bit of a caricature of himself for the whole match. I remember when he last refereed us, and I think it was against Borussia Dortmund last season at Ibrox, and I recall on the pod after the game, just absolutely applauding his display, albeit he chopped off our winner for a phantom foul on Emre Can in the lead up to what would have been the third goal. But back to the plaudits, and I genuinely meant it at the time. He's most certainly one of UEFA's most experienced refs, but he was, I don't know, he was just annoying for like a level of arrogance or believe in his own hype or whatever. When you get the impression that the ref cares more about himself than he does about the actual game and the players and the game flowing and the like, then it starts to get a wee bit sticky for me. I think, quite fairly and honestly, I think he got pretty much most, if not all, of the major calls correct, but he was just a bit of a tool about it most of the game. So for that, he gets a 6 out of 10. There's no favouritism here. When it comes to referees, you'll get measured on what you do in the games, of course. Our second game was Saturday's 2-1 struggle fest at home to Dundee United. We started absolutely on fire. For the first time, I actually can't remember the last time we started a game like that. So it's for a very, very long time. And I had visions that if we get a couple of early goals, that we might rack up a high scoreline against them. But it just fizzled out fairly quickly into a bit of a pedestrian performance, and we endured, I guess, in hindsight, not really, but like a somewhat nervy last 30 minutes or so to see the game out. It wasn't pretty, but I think we all agreed before the game that the only and main outcome that we absolutely needed from the game was a victory, and that's what we got. So we'll take it here now, sitting afterwards. Positives from the game: the score, for starters, the invention, the creativity, the endeavour, the entertainment actually that we were treated to in the first 10 minutes or so were excellent. Seeing McGregor back between the goalposts again, and Leon King and Charlie McCann in the starting lineup was brilliant, and Ryan Jack looked like he was nearing his best. Again, just every time I seem to write this guy off, he just comes back and does that. I just hope that maybe this international break will give him a wee bit more chance to work on his fitness and see where he goes. But he was superb while he was on the pitch for us. Maybe drifted out a tiny bit before he got taken off. And my main man, Antonio Cholak, scoring a brace to take his league goals to 6 goals in 7 games and to win us the match was all very, very positive. The negatives: Dundee United really are a bunch of disgusting, loathsome cretins, aren't they? They just can't. They can't stay silent for a minute's silence in memory of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. It's just utterly disgusting and filthy behaviour. It was nice to see Cholak head over to them after scoring and giving them the gears and to telling them just to quieten down just then. Cholak gets it, doesn't he? Other negatives were our finishing for most of the game. I mentioned a wee bit more luck and composure for the Napoli game. Very much the same for the Dundee United game as well. Cholak aside, of course, and our finishing was pretty awful, wasn't it? There was a couple of freshier swipes in there. There was trying to walk the ball into the net. There seems to be some sort of hesitation to shoot again, choosing the wrong pass at the wrong time. Just one of those days that I don't know, what would you say? We weren't thinking clearly enough. We weren't thinking sharply or acting sharply enough. It was pretty frustrating. And on the referee watch, Kevin Clancy, the guy's just an average referee. He was somewhat inconsistent throughout, but stayed fairly strong-ish when the United players were going down for penalty claims. Although he could and maybe shouldn't have booked the players for simulation if he wasn't going to award the penalty kick. He doesn't like us, we don't like him, so for this reason and that fact that he didn't have an absolute horror show, he's going to get a 7.5 out of 10 for this week. On to this week, as you'll know, I've mentioned it a couple of times now, no games due to the international break, and this is actually the weekend's game there was actually our last game of September, believe it or not, with our next game being at Tynecastle on the 1st of October. So we'll talk a bit more about that one next week. For RTV, it seemed we had another successful week. Again, we're churning these out now in terms of RTV, and we got the on-demand turnaround fairly quickly for the Vancouver Downtown Bears as well, so that was good as well. We did have one password voucher issue with the Los Angeles True Blues, which we'll get organised. I think the previous voucher just expired and they hadn't put the new one in just yet, so not an RTV issue per se. For shout-outs this week, firstly, I'd like to acknowledge again the incredible job the organisers did in organising and laying to rest of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II earlier today. I watched as much as I could on the TV this morning during kind of working hours, and it was just so classy and respectful and very moving, quite frankly, on so many levels. And I tell you what, You know, looking at like King Charles the third right now, that poor man is hurting. Every time the cameras pan to him, specifically in the church, you could just see and feel his pain, and that was heartbreaking to see for me. You know, I mean, through all this his ceremony and you know his new job and that, you know, it's you kind of sometimes forget that you're dealing with a fellow here who's just lost his mum, and you know, who has been his mum for 70 plus years. You know, it was as I say, heartbreaking. To see, so much so that I had to go for a wee run just to clear my head, just as the funeral was getting going this morning, because I didn't want to get myself a wee bit too upset at that sort of stuff. But it was a wonderful occasion and an amazing way to say farewell to our longest serving monarch, and may she rest in peace. Secondly, congratulations to the Green Brigade for finally getting the worldwide recognition you should have had so very long ago with your disgusting, offensive banners and behaviours during the last week's Champions League match in Donetsk and in beautiful Paisley yesterday. You're an absolute embarrassment to yourselves and to your families and literally to the human race, and you took this one far too far. To the point that your club can't even ignore it now, like it has for years and years and years. I hope the UEFA fine that's pending is significant, and the worldwide disgust shown will live long in the hearts and minds of sensible members of society. Nice one, boys and girls, you scum. Finally, on the shout-outs, I'm going to go positive on this one. Finally, on the shout-outs, this week Erin and I are heading to a wedding in Lake Geneva in Wisconsin to celebrate the marriage of Lee Bell to his fiancée and sweetheart Kayla this coming Friday. Lee is the son of Martin and Pam Bell, and for regular listeners, you might remember that Martin and his boy Sam were part of our big crew that all got together and had a hell of a party in Seville in May, this past May, and he's been a regular attendee at NARSA conventions for the past wee while as well. So we were very, very happy to get the invite. A very staunch Blue Nose family. Really looking forward to seeing them, and Big Scott Robertson from Chicago also. And also some of the Campbell clan will be there too, so it's going to be great to catch up with Brian Gaynor and their family down there and see how Brian's continued ongoing cancer treatment recovery is going. So more to follow on that one next week, but yeah, a wee bit of a travel time. Leaving on Wednesday, flying back on Monday, so I'll be back for next Monday's pod. Don't worry about that, I'm sure you weren't anyway. For the convention update for NARSA 2023, I can officially confirm that it's 269 days and 38 weeks until Toronto Midtown hosts the biggest bash of the year. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, the time is marching on here, folks. The convention committee met with the Pride of the Rock Flute band members, Brian Adam and Steve Daly, last Friday to walk and talk through their potential involvement as a designated flute band for NARSA 2023. And just for your information, we try during our planning, our preliminary planning, and then the planning, the proper planning, if you could say, to give the host clubs as much creative input and creative license as we possibly can, so that each convention has a real personal stamp of the host club. Some clubs embrace it, take it and run with it, and others are a wee bit more passive and are quite happy for NARSA to take the lead. In both ways is absolutely fine. The key is that all clubs are offered it to make it as inclusive and as a personal experience as they possibly can. And when we first engaged with Andy from Toronto Midtown as they were putting their bid together, he had expressed a desire to have a flute band that he was familiar with from back home as a bit of a kind of mixer-upper, I guess you could say, from a regular band of the Govan Proddy Boys. I've already chatted to Ian from the Proddy Boys back in the early part of summer there to let them know that we might do something different for next year. And we've had some cursory conversation that led to last week's meeting, and the meeting went very well, apart from my tardiness in getting on the call because I ended up getting absolutely slammed with work just before the meeting started. The guys are very excited to further explore the possibility, and they have their own band AGM this Thursday where they'll be able to put a wee bit more information on the table and see where they can take things from there. So yeah, excited to see what comes of that. And other than that, there was no material movement with the hotel or the travel situation for now, but Both of those things are high on our list of things to progress over the next wee while, so more information should be shared in the coming week or so here. Same with, of course, the convention tickets as well. On to our other business segment. Your NARSA executive did indeed have a meeting last Tuesday where we worked through our regular agenda. We worked through our finances, RTV, our sponsorship and marketing portfolios, and of course the convention, and then some other ancillary bits and pieces of business. We talked through working a NARSA raffle into our ongoing operations and engagement activities over the next wee while, so stay tuned for a wee bit more information on that. We also talked about how NARSA could potentially support the Alfredo Morelos Foundation. You'll remember I talked a wee bit briefly about that last week. And we did moot some modifications and modernisations on our NARSA communications. Unfortunately, Fraser Muir, our communications director, wasn't there, but we'll catch up with him and let him know what we're talking about, including the need for a bit of a constitutional review prior to the winter general meeting. But another great chat with the folks, and we made great progress on the things that we needed to. So more to follow on those items as things get progressed over the next little while. On the communications front for this past week, I have a few things to share actually this week, which is kind of good after a couple of dry weeks there. Starting with a progress update provided by the club on the ongoing construction work of new Edmiston House. And what they did this time was they provided some photographs of inside and outside the construction to give a bit of a sense of the progress being made. I'll pop a link to the article in the blurb for tonight's pod. If you're interested, you can go and take a peek at that. Secondly, for this week, the club announced a new partnership where they say, I'm just going to read the whole thing out instead of posting the link on this one, because it's all kind of relevant. Rangers are delighted to announce a new partnership with Dundonald Links, one of Scotland's premier golfing venues. Dundonald Links will play host to the Rangers annual golf day on Monday the 10th of October 2022, which will feature a number of Gers heroes. Situated along the picturesque coast of Ayrshire, Dundonald Links is the ultimate place to stay, play golf and dine in Scotland. The club's Par 72 course offers a classic links golf experience and has hosted several professional and amateur golfing events throughout the years. Rangers Commercial and Marketing Director James Bisgrove commented, "We are thrilled to partner with Dundonald Links Golf Resort, which has established itself as one of Scotland's most prominent golfing destinations in recent years. At Rangers, we strive to associate ourselves with best-in-class and like-minded partners, and with the incredible course and new facilities at Dundonald, we believe the partnership fulfills this ambition. We look forward to collaborating closely with the Dundonald Links team in the years ahead and are excited to launch our first annual Rangers Golf Day at the venue on the 10th of October. The general manager of Dundonald Links, Ian Ferguson, I don't think it's that one, added, "We are thrilled to announce our partnership with Rangers FC, which felt like a very natural one for Dundonald Links given how passionate we both are about our respective sports and creating legacy within them. We look forward to welcoming the club and the partners to Dundonald Links to enjoy some of the very best facilities in Scotland." And the article finishes off by saying, "For more information on the Rangers annual golf day or to book, please contact events@rangers.co.uk. That's events@rangers.co.uk. On the memorabilia associated with the Rangers 72 film, time just ran out on us to get that out last week, despite me saying that we would definitely get it done. But I'll definitely carve out some time during my pending travels this week to get the email together and get it out. And as I mentioned last week, we do have the code now that we'll be sending out, which will give NARSA friends and family and members, of course, a discount. So I'd encourage everyone to take a peek at that. And if it's your thing and you can afford it, go for it. And if it's not, it's a nice thing to look at anyway. Finally, on the comms front for this week, you might have seen over the last couple of weeks that NARSA Partners 5 Stars announced their captain's dinner that they had organised originally for Friday the 6th of January 2023, and no sooner had tickets for that one went on sale, such was the demand, that they announced very, very quickly an additional night, which is on Thursday the 5th of January. Both events are at the Doubletree by Hilton in Glasgow. And if you haven't seen it, I'll put a link on the blurb. But wowee, what a lineup they have! They have Terry Butcher, Richard Gough, Barry Ferguson, David Weir, Lee McCulloch, Lee Wallace, Lorenzo Amoruso, and Craig Moore. That should be an absolutely incredible 2 nights there. Standard tickets are £75 plus a £1.88 service fee, and VIP tickets are £120 plus £3 service fee. And the VIP ticket includes a meet and greet and a photo souvenir of said meet and greet. I imagine the 5-star nights always look fantastic. Unfortunately, I haven't been to one yet, but maybe I'll get to go to one at some point in the future. But this one in particular looks absolutely amazing. And it reminds me of where we were going as an association, as NARSA, before back as we were planning the convention for 2020 before the COVID pandemic took over the world. Brian Campbell had come up with an idea of a manager's theme for San Francisco, and we had Graham Souness, we had Walter Smith, and we had Alex McLeish lined up to attend, and it was going to be absolutely dynamite. And Brian and I were then musing about extending that theme over time and doing something very similar to what these guys are doing now in terms of the captains, which looks just magic, as I said. So who knows, maybe we'll be able to chat to the 5 Stars team and see about maybe taking this on the road to Toronto 2023. Wouldn't that be something, eh? You never know. Anyway, what our friends at 5 Stars have done is provided NARSA with 2 tickets to give away in an exclusive competition for NARSA members and friends. So what I'll do when I'm lining up the Rangers 72 correspondence this week, I'll chat with the comms team about how best we want to communicate that competition out. So stay tuned. It might not be next week for that one, but it will be fairly soon. And I'll put a link to, if you're looking to book either of those nights, I'll put a link in there for that. For that event as well, so that you can get the tickets if you need. I'd recommend you do that fairly quickly based on the popularity of the first night. Okay, that will do it for this week, my friends. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I really, really, really appreciate it, and please do share it with whomever you think might enjoy it to get the listenership up there a wee bit. And until next week, here's to the team taking a break, recharging their batteries, and coming out the other side absolutely flying, which is the opposite of what we typically do after the international breaks. But hey, you never know. Until next week, my friends, please do take care of yourselves. All the best. Cheerio.